Hello, football world, and welcome to the fourth place trophy Serie A podcast preview for the 2013-2014 season. I am joined, as always, by Jujex. Jujex, how you doing?
I'm doing awesome.
And special guest, Cloudst ST. How are you doing, Cloudst?
I'm doing quite well. How are you guys?
Just fantastic. Serie A is about to start, so let's get cracking on reviewing a couple teams. We're going to review Roma and Udinese, but starting off with Roma, they had a somewhat turbulent season last year, ending up in sixth place in the table, and had a couple coaching changes. Zeman was started off as the coach, and the revolution he had said to have brought was unsuccessful. So they had a steward come in, Aurelio, and ended the season on a relatively neutral note. But I wanted to see how you guys thought of Roma last year.
Naveed, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Roma, I thought they were pretty inconsistent. Overall, they 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 had a very attacking style, but their defense was kind of missing. But even then, they did have some very talented players like Lamela and Destro in their squad, which was always shone through. And obviously, they have Totti, who's an ageless wonder, I guess you could say. For Roma, I think they'll be a little disappointed because it looked like they were gonna bounce back with all the squad players that they had, but they just were too inconsistent and ended up finishing right below Udinese, who had a late push. But yeah, I think Roma should be a little disappointed to where they finished in the end.
Yeah, and Jujex, what do you think?
I think there were a lot of promises in the beginning of the season with Zeman's return to the Serie A, but obviously everybody knows what happened after that. But the positive that I think the Roma fans that can take to this season was development, as Naveed said, development of young players like Lamela and players like Marquinhos who left, and we're gonna get to that later. But a new coach has just come in. His name is Rudi Garcia. Rudi Garcia was the coach from Lille who won League, I think, in 2011, 2012. Am I right? Or 2010, 2011? Naveed, you'd know
I think
about that?
I
It
think
was 2010, 2011.
Yeah, yeah.
2010,
the double.
2011. Yeah. And what do you know about him, Naveed? Do you think he will take Roma where they want to go this season?
You know what? Rudi Garcia brings out the best in players, and we saw. I think everyone saw this when Gervinho and Eden Hazard. I mean, we all saw how Gervinho did in Arsenal, and he was a catastrophe. But when he was at Lille, he was a different player. With Lille, him and Eden Hazard and Moussa Sow were in that title-winning season with Liga. They were just one of the best trios in the league. They were unbeatable. It was Hazard just doing his trickery, and Gervinho. He was very, very much an integral part of that team. So yeah, Rudi Garcia. If you want to see the best of these young players and even the aging players, when Rudi Garcia brought in Pedretti from Algeria.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he knows how to bring the best out of player, and I think for Roma this is a fantastic move. Every player is going to benefit from Rudi Garcia. He'll work with them individually, and he'll make them gel as a team. So it's fantastic for Roma.
Yeah, and I mean, was manager of the year the same year he won that double in Ligue 1, and especially coming into Roma, he's one of his assistant coaches, Aurelio Andrizzoli. I mean, he's been an assistant coach / caretaker for Roma pretty much since 2005. He was the one that took over for Zeman. So from the squad players that have been with Roma who might want some consistency, on the bench, he will be able to provide that as an assistant coach. And kind of the new vision of Rudi Garcia can come in and really take hold, especially with the new players.
I think for basically what we need to realize is Roma wants to go younger, basically, and with the players that they have, I think Rudi Garcia is a perfect coach for that, especially like players like Tim Jedva and like and Lamela, and Lamela ends up staying, and Strootman, of course. I mean, if you want to get the best out of these players, you really have to consider that Rudi Garcia is the perfect coach for that team.
Well, that was a perfect transfer, Nabi, into transfers. Rome have been fairly active, actually, at least from a rival. We have Strootman, Benitia, Gervinho, De Sanctis. There's been a couple of Genoa deals, and Jedve, and so wanted to open up to
the
you.
Great Gervinho, obviously.
Gervinho.
Right, the great Gervinho. So, Jujex, wanted to open up to you. What do you think about some of the new arrivals in the capital?
I think they got themselves a gem in Kevin Strootman. Strootman is a player of the highest quality. I think he was linked to Manchester United and other teams in EPL, and I was really impressed with Roma when they got him. I think he's gonna add a lot to the defensive quality of the team, which was very needed because they conceded 50 something goals last season, and he's gonna add a lot to that. He's also he has a pretty good shot on him. He can move forward really well, so I'm really impressed with him.
Yeah, and especially with the acquisition of De Sanctis, I think that's huge in terms of their ability to no longer concede too many goals. But yeah, definitely lacking when it comes to the conceding goals aspect, and especially midfield with the loss of some players. But Nabeed, what do you think of the arrivals?
I'm curious though about Gervinho's acquisition. Maybe since you're also an Arsenal fan, obviously, what do you think of that?
For Gervinho, he was a very hardworking player, but he never suited Arsenal's style of play. He's the type of player that used to like dwell on the ball a little bit, and for a team like Arsenal who has a direct style of play, he really didn't suit Arsenal. But Rudi Garcia, he utilized him at his potentially best. So for Gervinho, this is possibly a really good move. And for the future, Gervinho, he does have a lot of trickery, and he'll be able to use that. I just think his decision making is a little lacking. Where he fits into this Roma team, I don't know yet. I haven't really seen him play yet. But for the other signings, I mean, Strootman, he's probably one of the best anchormans right now in the entire world. Possibly, he's potentially got that potential to be world class. And he was one of the most sought out midfielders. I mean, Manchester United were after him for like literally 2 years, and PSV eventually just sold him to Roma. So that's an incredible pickup. Maicon obviously was another pretty good pickup. Benatia from Udinese. I mean, he was their main center back for so many years. I think defensively, if you look at that, that's fantastic for Roma for that pickup.
Yeah, I think their core is a lot stronger if you look at De Sanctis and then Benatia in front of him and Strootman, De Rossi in front of him. I'm pretty sure that they're not going to be conceding as many goals as they did last season. What about Tin Jedve from Dinamo Zagreb?
Yeah,
he's a pretty highly rated youngster.
I was about to say Tin Jedve was a player that was linked with Arsenal and I was following him quite some time. I think he has a fantastic reading of the game. I think he could be potentially a very big steal for Roma in the coming years because he has massive potential. And even if Roma lost Marquinhos to PSG, I think Jedve is gonna easily pick the slack up, and he'll provide something, a bit of a spark in that defense that Marquinhos may be left behind. But this is a very smart move from Roma.
Well, yeah, and they've gone young. I mean, they did pick up Mike Cohn recently, and again, short of De Sanctis and Mike Cohn, all their players are under the age of 26 that they acquired. Another one that no one's mentioned yet is Destro from Genoa, a young 22-year-old Italian striker. With the loss of
but
Osvaldo.
they had Destro last season.
Yeah, I was about to say
the Destro deal is just an extra bonus that they owed Genoa, and they also got a couple of youngsters from Genoa on a deal when they gave them tax cities. So that's that. Yeah.
Well, fine then. Anyways, going over to the departures,
I was just
they lost a couple
Don't
people, Osvaldo, Marquinhos, a couple high dollar figures, at least in Marquinhos, going over to PSG. Nabil, how do you see that affecting Roma, or do you think that their rivals will make up for it?
Marquinhos, I think he had like one of the best interception rates in Europe. I think he was one of the highest. I'm not sure, but whenever you have that type of a player who has that type of a stat, you always think, yeah, it's gonna affect you overall. And now you have question marks over who's gonna pair in the center back positions, right? So there is question marks about that. But the signings that they made, they'll get by. They have Benati right now and Balzaretti and stuff. Yeah, they can get by with these players and possibly make a pretty strong challenge. I mean, if I were Roma, I would rather build with a couple of quality players with the money that they got, and they did exactly that. They got Strootman and they got the other players. For Osvaldo, I think what Southampton were offering, I think with Destro coming in, I think it was a good move. I think Destro was a little better than Osvaldo, though I do question Osvaldo's motivations to going to Southampton, considering he was linked with a couple of Champions League clubs. But that's my.
And Jujex, what do you think about the departures?
I think another important move that they made was reselling Boyan to Barcelona. At first, the deal didn't seem so smart. Didn't seem smart because it was 12 million for Boyan, and if they wanted to keep him after 2 seasons, they would have to give Barcelona, I think, around 40 million. But they ended up selling him back for 13 million. So that's a lot of money they made. Marquinhos' deal, I think that was a really smart deal because, as important as defenders are, you can find great defenders for 12, 13, and make up for what you had. And in Benatia, I think they're going to have a defender just as strong as Marquinhos, if not stronger, for their team. So that was a lot of money and a pretty good deal. I do believe that they need another forward now that they've sold Osvaldo to Southampton.
Yeah, and hopefully with that money, as you mentioned, they end up reinvesting well moving forward.
Oh, I also forgot to mention the Skeletonberg, Martin Skeleton.
I think they're happy for him to no longer be there.
Can you imagine Stekelenburg for 5.5 and then get a quality keeper in the Sanctus for just $500,000? That is pretty good business.
Yeah, it's good business.
Okay, for the next question, if you guys know, Tottenham Hotspurs are linked heavily with a deal for Eric Lamela over the past couple of days. The rumor is that they're gonna spend 35 million euros on him. Do you guys think that Roma should accept the deal since Lamela was arguably their most important player last season? Evan, I'm gonna go to you.
I'm always a fan of keeping the young talent, especially wanting Serie A to have the best championship that they can. But for 35 million, Lamella's. I don't know if there's another guy out there that's going to be like him, and he's someone that you can absolutely build your attack around. You got to think that Totti's not going to be there that much longer, so who's going to be your go-to guy? If they start offering, if they can get 40 plus, that's when I pull the trigger and start reinvesting elsewhere. But it'd be a tough decision for me to say yes on Lamela because I do think short of El Shaarawy, I think he's going to be the best young striker or attacker out there in Serie A right now.
Interesting. Naveed, what do you think about this?
I never like seeing Tottenham try to strengthen, but in general for for Roma, I think this would be a little bit of a mistake, considering that Lamela was their most influential player last season. I know the money is obviously going to be a massive consideration here, but Roma really have to consider that they lost Marquinhos this season. And they also lost a couple of. They also lost.
Osvaldo. I mean,
Osvaldo, yeah,
that's still
exactly.
a big
They
loss.
lost
Yeah.
Osvaldo too. So do they really want to lose another? Yeah, do they really want to lose another key player, and rely on Gervinho, who I'm not sure will, you know, if they don't replace, will they try to just play with Gervinho? So there is questions about that, and Rudi Garcia and the others have to make a decision. But I think we left out a part here. We have to remember that the former Roma director is also at Tottenham, so we have to see if he has an influence in this deal as well. He could possibly pull the strings and get Lamela, but we so far we don't know that. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But if Roma do end up doing this, I think it'll be a mistake.
I agree with Nabeed. I think this is going to be a huge mistake. I mean, if you compare the prices in the market these days, a player of Lamela's quality is a rare commodity on the market. And if you compare him to, for example, Gareth Bale, who might be leaving to Real Madrid for an astronomical fee, Lamela's 35 or even 40 that you mentioned, Evan, I think it's still pretty low for a player who's capable of scoring goals from a wide position, who can shoot from distance, has a great free kick. He has it all, I think. And even if they sell him, who are they going to replace him with? I don't think there are any players at Lamela's quality available for that position.
Yeah, and that really is the big question mark is the replacement factor, and yeah, I just don't see how you're going to be able to replace Lamela. Go ahead, Nabeed.
Yeah, I was about to say, if they do end up selling Lamela, will they have enough time to find that replacement? This becomes another issue. They have a lot to consider here, because then you're kind of just left with Gervinho. I don't think you want to rely too much on Gervinho, as you've seen in Arsenal.
And I'm sure Arsene Wenger will come in with a late bid for Lamela here.
Yeah,
That's my little jab at Arsenal, guys. My little jab.
Little jab.
Little jab. Little
it will
jab.
probably be 5 million less than what Spurs had offered already.
We'll
Right.
put £1 in more.
Exactly. Well, let's, I guess, take it on just kind of the last step, barring, Lamela leaving, let's just say that he stays for the time being, where are we expecting with the, new manager, new system, a couple really new faces and losing a few, where you see this Roma side going this year? Go first, Nabeed. Yeah, go ahead.
With the quality of the squad they have, if they can stay fit, I can't, and the team is together for a season now. They have the chemistry. If Garcia can make them click, I seriously see them competing for a top 3 spot at least, because they could make the Champions League with the squad. They have the chemistry. They have the players. Strootman, Bradley, and De Rossi in midfield is going to be absolutely bombing. That's an awesome balance to have. You would have to say they're one of the most competitive midfields, possibly to Juve right now. So it could be an interesting season for Roma. But
that's a bold statement there, Nabeed. That's a bold statement.
I actually agree with him.
Yeah. So
I was going to say that if they can get hold of Lamela, and if things click this season with Rudi Garcia, I think they can even finish third in Serie A this season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely gonna say, they're definitely gonna get a Europe spot this year. It's really tough to say. I never know with new managers if people are instantaneously gonna click well, or they aren't. But I'll go with more a Europa spot. I'll say they're gonna be 4 or 5 this year. I just think there's a lot of teams have bolstered their lineups this year, and We'll see. I guess for me, we'll see with Roma. But appreciate you guys' input on Roma, and we're just gonna go transfer right into Udinese. So Udinese had an interesting year themselves. Had a late run, a late push late in the season last year that made up for we'll just call it a slow start. So they ended up at 5th. So brought Cloudst along mainly because he is the guru when it comes to Udinese. So Cloudst, how did you feel the team did this year or this past year?
For Udinese, really it was about balancing Europa League and balancing Europa League and the league. And what suffered this past season was the losses of basically Asamoah to Juve, and yeah, we lost a lot of key players. And whenever it's basically like saying you're taking the wheels off the very fast ship. So when Udinese lost like Asamoah and stuff, we really suffered, and we kind of started relying on Pinzi. And then when Pinzi got injured, we relied on Pereira to do stuff, and that was Pereira's first season at the club, and he wasn't doing too well because he was still adapting to Guidolin's system. So overall, it wasn't a great start, but after Guidolin realized we weren't going to make any push for the Europa League at all once we ended up finishing fourth, we made a late push to at least finish in the Europa League spot, and that's exactly what we got. So overall, I guess with the situation, with the injuries included, I think it was a okay finish, but a very disastrous start.
And Jujex, how do you feel about Udinese this season?
I actually thought that they had a pretty good season last season because they started off, as Nabil said, they started as it seemed like they were not going to have another overachieving season again, but as it always is with Udinese, they pushed for a Europa League place at the end. I mean, I think they have the habit to go on these long winning streaks when it reaches the later stages of the season. So I think they finished it pretty well. I hope they won't do it again this year.
Yeah, hopefully they're a little bit more consistent throughout the year. And again, the Serie A championship is going to be a little bit more difficult this year, I think, than last year.
Yeah. Well, also Udinese had again another low-key transfer season this summer with players that are not usually well known to Serie A fans like me, but Cloudst knows a lot about them. So Nabil, what do you think of Udinese's transfer rivals this season? Because I don't know any of these players.
I have to second that one.
Basically we made some signings that we addressed. Basically, we didn't address last season, like Kalava from Zagreb. I think that was very key because Brkic wasn't that great for us last season. He was very inconsistent, and having an international keeper like Kalava in between the nets, I hope he can replicate this form that Handanovic had when he was with us. Obviously, Handanovic is not doing so great at Inter, but anyways. The other one was Naldo, who I think will be pairing Domitzi more this season after Benatia left, so I'm very much looking forward to that. Other two younger signings would be Nico Lopez and Alexander Kiof. Kiof came from Lens, but he was immediately loaned out to Granada, so we'll get to that Granada thing in a bit. But Kiof is very highly rated at Lens, and when we got him, I was pleasantly surprised because he was very highly rated back in France. For Nico Lopez, as I said, he could feature this season, and I'm just looking forward to what Lopez has for the team. I think another player that may feature is Bubnic, who is Croatian center back. I'm not sure if he will feature as much because I believe the center back pairing will be Domitzi and Naldo, but Bubnic, it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on him. And obviously Torre is back from his Granada loan, so I think that'd be interesting to see as well.
Well, do you think with the new players coming in, is that going to change the formation that's going to be run, or are they going to stick with what they've been doing pretty consistently over the last couple of years?
Well, Udinese played, I'm going to have a hard time pronouncing this, Soroka Brigge, who are, I believe, a Croatian team in the Europa League. And really, in the first leg, we played with our normal 3 defensive system. But in the second leg, we did something different. We played with 4 defenders, and we did not have a 3 defensive system. Instead, we had fullbacks. And that tells me that this season, maybe Guidolin will be changing up things with the system. How that will affect the team, I don't know yet. But for me, I think it'll be interesting. We played with a 4-3-3 system in the second leg, and we beat Soroka Barrage. And I think it'll be interesting. I mean, if especially with Di Natale and Muriel, how 4-3-3 will come into place. But for now, I think it will be the 3 defensive system, 3-5. 3 oh whoops 3 4
3-5-2.
Yeah, 3-4-2.
So, I do have a question about your transfers. Which of these young talents do you think that you're going to be selling to Juve, Inter Milan in future for 10 times the fee? Because we might be able to get a deal now if you're interested.
Only a Juventino would ask that question. Only a Juventino would ask that question.
Well, I mean, if you look at the players that we bought in, I mean, Igor Bubchnic, I have no idea where. I haven't seen him play, but he did bring a lot of hype with him when he did sign him. The other one, I think, is Nico Lopez and Alexander Kiev. From those lists, I think those are going to be some interesting ones. I mean, obviously there's Roberto Pereira, but that was apparently going to leave, but I guess he's staying.
Udinese also had some very key departures this season, with Benatia going to Rome on a $13.5 million deal. Quadrado was sold to Fiorentina on a co-ownership basis, as well as Pablo Armero and Antonio Candreva, who had an excellent season with Lazio last year. And you've also sold Williams to Internacional, and a few players to Watford. So, by a few, I mean 8, which is a lot of players. So what do you think of the departures this season?
Well, I'm gonna be very honest. I think missing Benatia giving Benatia to Roma was a bit of a loss, because he was their main centre back pairing with Dimitri. He was always he was always that very rock in the back, and Roma have a very good signing with them. Overall, I know people are gonna look at Suardado and Pablo Armero and wonder why Udinese sold them. Oh, and also Candreva. The truth is, when Candreva, Suardado, and Armero were at Udinese, Armero was good, but Suardado and Candreva, they were that great. They didn't really fit in the style, so Suardado was already on loan to Fiorentina, so.
I'm a little surprised to say that, because Quadrado actually had a pretty good season for Lecce, in 2011-2012, before you guys sold him on loan to Fiorentina. I was surprised you guys didn't retain him, because he's both capable in playing in a 4-3-3 as a winger and in a 3-5-2 as a wing back.
Yeah, it just didn't work out, though. I mean, it wouldn't have for Suardado. I think he's a great player. I think he fits Fiorentina's system, but it comes down to system. Would he adapt Guidolin's system? I don't think he would have. It was so. With Armero, though, it was just a matter of Gabriel Silva being better than him and younger too. So.
Well, and don't forget Jujex. I mean, we had Candreva on Juve, and it didn't work out. So it kind of a right time, right place type of thing.
But if you look at the management that was managing the club at the time,
let's not talk about segment right now.
A lot of deals back then, so you could consider it as one of those.
True. Well, I think these co-ownership talks kind of transfers off, and I heard Watford in there a couple times. So, Udinese has been one of those clubs that have kind of pioneered being a little bit crafty and clever when it comes to not only their transfers, but just managing their finances of the club as well. And that's gone into owning some of the clubs like Granada in Spain and Watford in England. So just wanted to get your opinion, Cloudst, ST, about what you think that has in terms of effect on Udinese moving forward.
Well, I believe. Udinese is currently trying to buy their stadium, And what's going on is basically we're trying to having Watford and Granada is an easy way to loan out players and let them have experience, especially players like Bubjanic in the future and Torhe, who play in like the Romanian league and they have no real top level experience. So when they go to like the Championship or even in La Liga in Spain, they get that higher level experience, and it helps them develop as players. So in that sense, it really does help them. And when you look at like when you're talking about Watford and giving them players like we gave them like Fabrini and Ferroni, it helps like balance in the future. Like Watford as a team as well, they could balance themselves out. They have more chemistry. But I mean, I am a little disappointed to see Fabrini and Ferroni go. But it overall helps Udinese balance the books. It also takes their wages off, which is very important if we're looking at trying to complete a stadium of the magnitude that Udinese is. So yeah, it's financially beneficial, and it also helps the players who are going out on these loans to these clubs, because they get the match experience and they'll overarchingly get better development in the process.
Yeah, and Jujex, you have anything to add to that? I think hit on some good points there.
Yeah, especially about loaning players to Watford. I think it's a pretty good idea if the players aren't getting any playing time, since there are no B teams in Serie A like there is in La Liga where players can develop. It's a pretty good idea that Udinese now have sent 8 players to Watford to develop, and they can probably help Watford reach Premier League, which will the EPL, which would bring a lot of money to the Udinese owners who also own Watford. So it's win-win situation for everybody.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that Udinese is going to become the second team that are owning their own stadium, because that really does mean a lot when it comes to the finances of the club. And just kind of going to the next thing, we talked about the partnership a little bit with Muriel and Di Natale. Got to ask the question. Di Natale has really been, over the past 4 seasons, one of the top 3 goal scorers in the world, short of Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. I think he's had like 103 goals. Gotta see, why in the world is Prandelli not including him in the Italian national team?
Yeah, that is the question, isn't it? I really don't know. I mean, for the past few seasons, I mean, Di Natale has been an absolute beast. He's always had these 20-goal seasons. Right now you can argue, yes, he is aging, but even before, I mean, what was the reason to keep him out of the squad? I mean, the only argument you could really make is, like, I guess he's aging. I mean, I'm sorry, he's not aging. He didn't fit into the squad tactically, but I really don't know. When you have a lethal guy like Di Natale who can score goals from, like, literally anywhere, like, he had some of the most fantastic goals I've ever seen scored last season in Serie A. I mean, he's just amazing. I really don't have an answer to that question. I mean, I guess Prandelli doesn't see him tactically fitting in.
Sina, what do you think? Do you think Prandelli's just on the wrong side of this decision, or do you think there's actually a good reason for it?
I think that there could be a few reasons. Well, for starters, he didn't bring Di Natale to the Confederations Cup this season because, I mean, if you look at the players that have returned from the Confed Cup, they need a lot more time to rest to get ready for the season. And at the age that Di Natale is, which is 55, I think, at the moment, I think he could use that rest and put it into a successful season. But at the same time, I think that Prandelli might not prefer a provincial player in Di Natale, because, I mean, if you look at Di Natale's performances with Italy over the years, they haven't been as strong as they were with his team in Udinese. But with the forwards that we have now, I think it is absolutely essential for us to take Di Natale with us to the World Cup, because in a 3-5-2 position, formation that is going to be used a lot, especially if we face strong teams like Spain, who are teams that are strong with position. Di Natale can be as good as he is in Udinese, and he can get us out of a lot of tight situations. So another reason that he doesn't bring Di Natale to the national team, I think, is that he focuses a lot on Balotelli, and the players who are in the team are there to provide service for Balotelli, and Di Natale is not necessarily a provider.
Yeah, I wish we had an AC Milan fan to chime in on that point right there. I'm sure they'd have an opinion on it. But no, I agree. It's you gotta kind of feed the beast when it comes to Mario, and if he's gonna pull off some amazing goals, he needs someone to service him that way. And it's unfortunate because in a free flowing offense like Italy can play, I think Di Natale can really provide some not only some amazing goals but just a spark to the Italian offense and some great runs. But
Another reason that Prandelli mentions, which I agree but not completely, is that he is trying to rejuvenate the squad, the Italian squad, and we have a lot of talented young players like El Shaarawy and Insigne who can help the team a lot. But with this year's World Cup, I think he definitely has to bring Di Natale with him. He still has another 2 or 3 years in him that at the top level. So I think it would be a great idea if he take Di Natale with him to the World Cup.
you need at least one old salty veteran in there.
Exactly.
And
And
and when you have Di Natale's finishing ability, I mean that's always an asset to have. He's just a natural finisher, so
Yeah, it's not like he's a bad goal scorer. I think we
yeah,
can all
exactly.
agree on that.
yeah.
And to the last question, another player that is a very interesting player that you guys have, Cloudst, is Luis Muriel. I actually have him on a certain fantasy league, so I was wondering, how do you think he's going to perform this year?
Well, I think this is kind of evident that Luis Muriel is going to be the eventual replacement for Di Natale. He came off a pretty good season. He had 11 goals last season with Udinese. He'll build on that, but with Udinese, they always want Di Natale to be the main man. So it'll be more of a shared responsibility. So I think 15 goals, 15 to 11, or again goals, possibly is the estimation. If he hits anything above that, I think that'll be an overachieving season. But that's what I predict because for for Muriel, I think he's gonna share. He's gonna have to sit back for Di Natale because Di Natale is the star man, and I just see 15 to 11 goals, but he could be
I
a
think
key.
I think he can go even further because if you remember last year, he wasn't fit for the first few months of the season. He spent a lot of time to get in shape, but then when he hit the form that he wanted to be in, he scored 11 goals. So if he goes through the season on form from the beginning, I think he could go 15, even 20.
Yeah, but here's my qualm with that. I think what the thing is that if you're gonna have Di Natale paired with Muriel, and it worked brilliantly last season, it becomes a question of and if Muriel starts scoring, it becomes a question of do you start putting Muriel as more of the advancing forward rather than the player that stands back. And the reason why Muriel got all those goals is because Di Natale was tightly marked, and then Muriel would get the space to score. But it's because Muriel dropped off a little bit rather and gave Di Natale the space. And obviously, when you give Di Natale the space, he'll obviously finish off the goals. But this pairing of Di Natale and Muriel, it could be a very strong pairing up front. It has the potential to be one of the most dangerous in Serie A next season, for sure.
Yeah, and I think he was tied. Muriel was tied third most assists on the Udinese squad last year. Allen was number one, and Di Natale was second with 4, and then Muriel had 3. But I'm looking for him to have a partnership more similar to what people are hoping for El Shaarawy and Mario Balotelli to have, where it's like you said, Nabil, where you have Di Natale as kind of the taking all the attention of the opposition defense, giving up space for Mueller to act, but also Mueller really being kind of the setup man and that secondary striker for Di Natale. And I think if that partnership just gets another season to grow, and now that he is healthy, hopefully that is a more fruitful partnership here coming into the new season.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of like how will Muriel and Di Natale. I mean, they already have the chemistry. I'm just looking forward to how they interchange with each other this season.
And want to see where we think Udinese is gonna shape out this year on the table with all these changes, and you don't know half the squad, so it's sometimes hard to guess. But Nabil, where do you see Udinese shaping up on the table this year?
Well, I'm really hoping that Udinese ends up finishing at least in the top 3 position, but I think they'll finish at least 5th. With Europa League, it's going to be a little hard for Udinese to finish top 3 this season. But 5th seems like a good reality. We might have just that one final push again, like last season. So 5th for me.
And Jujex, do you share the optimism of our friend Cloudst?
I somewhat share the optimism, but not as optimistic as Nabil. I think Udinese will finish 6th this year, behind Fiorentina, Napoli, Roma, Milan, and Juve. Because, I mean, last year I think the reason that they finished higher was that Roma, well, with the problems that we mentioned, they finished behind Udinese. But this year with Rudi Garcia, I'm pretty sure that they will finish higher. So, sorry Nabil, I think you're gonna finish 6th.
That makes me sad.
and I'm gonna give Udinese the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna give them 5th as well. I think they'll start off a little bit better than this year than last year. Again, fingers crossed with Muriel not being injured. Hopefully that partnership can get off to a fast start, unlike last year. And I really don't know what Lazio will do this year. And Roma, they've had a lot of changes as well. I think they can do well, but you really never know when it comes to kind of that final push towards the end of the year. So I'm going to go with 5th as well and make Nabil happy.
Yes! Yes!
Well, again, appreciate Cloudst, appreciate you joining us and giving us your insights. You are the guru of all things Udinese, so I appreciate you joining us. And
it was a pleasure being on here, by the way. So.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for listening, and stay tuned for more Serie A previews for the 2013-2014 season here on Fourth Place Trophy.